All right, now to understand what is in fact happening within the United States in terms of combating the coronavirus infections there, and how bad is the situation within the United States, we're joined in by WION's Jagruti Devesh. She's joining us live from Washington. Now, Jagruti, give us a sense of what the novel coronavirus infection spread is like within the United States, and what has the Trump administration announced in terms of the measures that have been put in place to contain the spread of the coronavirus there.
Well, today the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Alex Azar, was speaking in front of a House subcommittee, and he confirmed another case of coronavirus in the United States in California. And this leads up to 60 people who have been infected with coronavirus in the United States. And so the Trump administration has really been trying to do a balance between prevention and stopping the spread of panic amongst citizens. This is what most governments seem to be trying to do. And in this news conference that the president gave an hour or so ago, he said he was very adamant that he wanted to show that his administration had the best response possible, the early response that he said he'd been ridiculed for, which was restricting travel to countries like China. Those sorts of measures and tightening the borders and quarantining those Americans returning from infected areas was working, and that the risk to the American people remained very low. In this news conference, he did say, in response to questions from reporters, that he was preparing for measures like quarantine cities if they were needed, that he had ordered a lot of protective equipment if it was needed, and that he was considering further travel restrictions at the right time. So these are further measures that he is saying that he is prepared to do, but he's also at the same time saying that he has done the best job possible and kept the American people safe as a result.
Absolutely, indeed. And also Donald Trump has gone on and said that the United States is very, very prepared for this. He has said, and he's given a bit of a medical advice. If I could actually read out what he said: wash your hands, stay clean. You don't necessarily have to grab every handrail unless you have to. And he's also said that Vice President Mike Pence will now be in charge of combating the novel coronavirus. Is he trying to underplay, the possibility of the spread of the novel coronavirus, keeping in mind as to how rapidly it's been spreading around the world in other nations?
This is what a lot of the president's critics have been saying, that he and his administration have been underplaying the impact of the coronavirus on the markets. Indeed, the president criticised the media for making the markets jumpy and causing panic, given that the Dow Jones was at a 2-day consecutive low on Tuesday night, with a slight rise at opening on Wednesday. His critics also say that he is underplaying the severity of the outbreak, the amount of money that the White House has requested from Congress to combat the coronavirus is $2.5 billion, which bipartisan members of Congress say is a figure far too low. Some Republicans have said it should be $4 billion. Some Democrats have said it should be $8.5 billion. So at this news conference, President Trump addressed this and said that he was prepared to spend whatever was appropriate to combat the coronavirus. So these are just some of the criticisms that the president has faced, suggesting that he has underplayed the severity. But in this conference, he really came out from the outset to say that he and his administration had done the best job possible. And by appointing Vice President Mike Pence, he was showing that he was on top of the situation, had control of the situation, despite what his critics might be saying.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, there are reports that about 60 cases of the novel coronavirus infections have been reported from the United States. Donald Trump, at this point of time, is he considering travel restrictions to certain nations that have become the hotbed for the novel coronavirus infections? For instance, countries such as South Korea or Italy. What is the US's stance on imposing travel restrictions at this point of time?
So again, he said that he was considering travel restrictions, but at the right time. So he hasn't announced anything yet at this news conference. But remember, the United States was one of the first countries to impose restrictions on travel to China at the start of this outbreak. And this was really countering the advice of the World Health Organization, which said that it did not advise curtailing trade and travel because they were worried about the deployment of goods and needed equipment would be restricted if countries close their borders and stop trade and travel. So the US has been straight out of the block in curtailing travel. They are clearly considering it in the future, but they haven't announced anything yet.
Right, at this point of time, has there been a funding that's been allocated? Because the reports that come in that say that, possibly $2.5 billion is the figure which the Republicans and the Trump administration wants. The Democrats want it to be much more. Has there been any consensus in terms of the funds that will be allocated to combat the spread of the novel coronavirus within the United States?
There hasn't been any finalisation of funds as yet. The $2.5 billion that the White House has requested is clearly up for consideration, and Democrats and Republicans think that it should be more. There are some who've said it should be $4 billion. Democrats like Chuck Schumer, the minority leader in the Senate, have said that it should be even higher, $8.5 billion. So clearly there is funding to be allocated, and that is going to happen in due course as Mike Pence, Vice President, heads up this task force that is going to coordinate with officials but also look at the deployment of resources. And he said he was going to be working with Congress to make sure sufficient funds were allocated. So that is yet to come, a confirmation of those funds and allocations and how it's going to be spent.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Jagrati Dave, for joining us from Washington, D.C. and getting us an update in terms of what the United States is doing to combat the spread of the novel coronavirus.